oftentimes people do ask us, "Hey, do you have any grants going on?"
Yeah.
And oftentimes you have to say, "No, we don't have any grants going on," but we actually do. We've got a couple that I'd love for you to speak on. The first one that we can just sort of briefly
Yep.
touch on is the CCF, the Community Collaboration Fund. What is that, and um, who could it benefit? Hey, what's going on? My name's Tim Brandon. I'm the coordination manager for the Hoosier Heartland SBDC, and I've got an awesome guest today. I'm sitting with Mr. Jordan Jicha. Welcome to the spotlight, sir.
Yeah, appreciate it. Excited to share some insight. We have a lot of conversation about entrepreneurship, but it's kind of cool to put it on camera and share some with the folks.
Yeah, and I think probably the first question that I hear the most is when I introduce myself, SBDC, IEDC, there's all these
Yeah.
acronyms. What is the SBDC? Maybe go into a little detail about that first.
Yeah, and I'll kind of talk about how we're structured too. So I'm the regional director for the Hoosier Heartland Center here in Indiana, and SBDC stands for Small Business Development Center. And what a lot of people don't realize is it's actually a national organization. There's 1,200 centers across the entire country. So when you think about that type of manpower too, we have advisors and staff across the entire country. So it's a really powerful organization with a lot of people, a lot of manpower, a lot of expertise, a lot of insight that people can share with you. But at a higher level, we are a nonprofit organization that provides no cost business consulting services to small business owners. And when I say small business owner, that's a pretty wide definition, as you've come to realize as well. It can be somebody who's just a freelancer working at home, working in a co working space. It can be a pretty large manufacturer. We have some clients who have 100, 200, even 300 employees. The definition of a small business technically is anybody with less than 500 employees, which is kind of wild to think about. If I was talking to a manufacturer with 400 employees, that feels like a pretty big company
Yep.
to me, but they're technically a small business. So what we do is we sit down with them, we figure out where they're at, where they want to go. You get assigned an advisor that works through those problems with you because every entrepreneur is a little different. The person who's just starting off has different challenges than somebody who's been in business for 20, 30, 40 years. So we're kind of in a unique position where we really can serve anybody in that entrepreneurial landscape, whatever those challenges might look like. We have somebody that can sit down with you and talk through those and figure out how kind of that action plan to get where you want to be. And when you supplement that too, our center's done a lot of content recently as well. So we're doing a lot of webinars. All of them are no cost. We're funded through grants through in the state of Indiana, through the IEDC at the state level, Small Business Administration federally, and then there's 10 centers kind of scattered through Indiana. Our center here is funded a little bit by Purdue. So it's a really powerful partnership. You bring in all these big players, and here we are providing no cost business consulting.
Love that. And thank you for, that's typically when we say small business development center, I think a lot of people think,
Oh, yeah.
okay, it's just for startups,
Yeah.
it's just for, new entrepreneurs, and that's just not the case at all. To your point, we get the chance to work with folks that have hundreds of employees. And I still think that definition's funny, like 500 employees is still considered like under 500 just small. That not to me personally, but
Nah.
hey, that's the definition, at least for now. Talk a little bit about the advisors. We have all this network at a national level, but here in Indiana specifically, where we're at, we're here in Vision Studio in Kokomo. This is amazing, by the way. I'll give a shout out to Ahmad McKinney for letting us use this space. And I know the viewers can't see behind here, but this is truly the easy button. We're gonna do this. We're gonna share this information. The fun part is that their staff is gonna do all the editing for us and then post this. So just super thankful to be in here, kind of a side tangent.
Really cool.
But talk about advisors and just, that as a resource, just our personnel. Who are they? What's some of their background? Just share a little bit about that. What's going on here in Indiana specifically.
Yeah, most of the advisors, and you'll find this nationally as well, are either former business owners, a lot of them current business owners with side hustles, as you and I are both entrepreneurs, both in this role as well. You'll find former business leaders, maybe they were directors or general managers, CEOs at some of those large manufacturers. So everybody's experience is varied, but a lot of times they were former entrepreneurs, people who have been in our clients' shoes, which helps us connect a little better. It's hard if not to say anything wrong with just going to school, getting an MBA and learning about how businesses operate. But when you felt those pains, when you felt, I couldn't pay my rent one month and I couldn't pay my mortgage because I was just starting off and it was a struggle, right? And a lot of us that are entrepreneurs have felt that pain. And it's hard, I think, emotionally to connect with clients sometimes if you haven't felt that, if you don't truly understand what that pain is. So I think that's a huge advantage. The other piece I'll say to that too is you're usually assigned one advisor, but you have to remember, I just mentioned that national network. We can reach out to anybody nationally. We can reach out to anybody statewide. We tend to reach out to our other advisors statewide, but so I came from the restaurant world, and I'm typically here in Kokomo and Lafayette. But if we had somebody who was in Indianapolis or in Fort Wayne or South Bend or somewhere else in the state opening a restaurant, and they got assigned an advisor there, I could work with them too. And I felt that experience. Restaurant business is a different animal. It's a different beast. I feel those very specific pains that those people starting out have felt. So we have that ability. If you got assigned to me and you were a manufacturer, I will work through some of those pain points. And if I'm like, you know what, I know Heath might know a little more about manufacturing than me and has felt some of those pains, I can always bring him in too as a co-advisor to help you through those specific pain points. I'd say primarily industry specific.
I love that. And that's a huge sort of unique selling proposition for us is the network and the experience and
Yeah.
everybody's background, the professional background or entrepreneurial background is just so nice to have as a navigator and as somebody that's connecting dots in the IEDC role, but then as somebody who's the coordination manager to have a database and a network of people that I can simply connect entrepreneurs to that are facing a certain struggle or wanting to learn about certifications or wanting to learn about specific grants and such. It's just awesome to have that sort of network. With regards to uh, with regards to folks that are coming in, they find our website, they find information about us. What's the most common sort of challenges maybe some entrepreneurs are facing when they come in, for advisement?
Yeah, I think a lot of times it revolves around money and marketing, right? Finding that ideal client, how you reach those ideal clients. But then sometimes a lot of people come to us. The primary reason is they want money in some capacity. They want a loan. They have this big vision. This is what it looks like. And for me, a lot of times I like to kind of break that ultimate vision down in what it looks like to actually get there. Because, I'll use restaurants as an example. That's my background. A lot of people kind of understand how restaurants operate, but opening up a restaurant's very expensive. And a lot of businesses that people want to get into, there is some sort of capital requirement. So when I sit down with somebody, we start to analyze what that actually looks like. You don't have to open up a brick and mortar to start with. Can we pare that back? Can we open a food truck? Can we just get a cart for a few $1,000s and set up on the side of the road and start doing some pop-up events? You could theoretically start a business, a food business, for only a few grand, and rather than spending a few $100,000, as I can personally attest to, in opening up a brick and mortar location. So I think a lot of times it's helping them figure out what that vision looks like and what the actionable steps are getting there.
Sure.
Financially is specifically the one that we get a lot. People come asking for grants, asking for loans through our organization, and I think that's the one thing I found just as an entrepreneur. And I was actually a client of the SBDC for my first restaurant, so I've seen kind of all angles from the Small Business Development Center. But uh, I didn't really realize that even though they weren't cutting me a check, they're paying those advisors. So we are offering entrepreneurs money. When you and I meet with an entrepreneur, we are being paid to do so.
Sure.
So to me, that's still a valuable service. And it's really selling that to people. Sometimes they're like, oh, I really need this $10,000. And I tell people, like, I can provide $10,000 worth of value to you. I can't cut you that check. But, if you went out to pay a consultant privately, independently, and I think we both kind of done this at
Yeah.
different points and gotten coaches, they're pretty darn expensive, really, really expensive. So I think it's really just figuring out the best way, the actionable plan to get there. And it's usually around money and marketing, I'd say.
Interesting. I see the same thing too. And I think, the other piece talking about advisors and the skill set and the reality that you could definitely charge for some of the things that we share, but we're able to do it for free through the sort of how we get paid through the state and grants. It's good to know. I think, the other piece to this that's valuable to entrepreneurs is networking. You can never
Yep.
go wrong just having, you know, people in your corner and other entrepreneurs. It's easy to be isolated, especially if you're in a rural community, to not have groups or co-working places or spaces in general where you're around other people going through the same thing as you. Speak to the importance a little bit about, how somebody could leverage the network at the SBDC or just different centers around how they might get involved in an ecosystem. What steps might they take?
Yeah, I think that was an interesting lesson for me when switching over from being just an entrepreneur to being into this role is I was extremely siloed when I owned my first restaurant. And I was connected with the SBDC, but it was I came looking for a loan to start my restaurant. They helped point me in the right direction. I ended up getting some financing and then I kind of left it from there. I didn't really engage with the Small Business Development Center after that. So now being on this side, I guess I was never aware of how many resources are truly available for entrepreneurs. And that's if I could go back and tell myself something, I would say there's a lot of people out there who want to help you,
Mm.
whether it's local chamber of commerce, it could be accountants, it could be just other entrepreneurs, right? And through the SBDC, we host in-person events. We do even through some webinars. I've had some entrepreneurs connect with one another through some of these webinar sessions. So just getting around other people who are feeling that struggle, working through pain points, as we've discussed many times, personal struggle, not only business challenges, but
Like,
personal life challenges as well. So going back to when I was talking about advisors too, somebody who understands that pain, it's the same thing. You have to surround yourself with people who understand those challenges and you can all work through it together. We're all going through similar challenges in life. So I think having that support group, that support network is really powerful because it can be a lonely world if you're out there, you're managing your staff if you have it, or you're managing your family. And there's a lot of moving parts. It can be lonely. And I was really lonely when I was an entrepreneur. So I think being on this side now, I've come to realize, wow, I could have connected with chambers and other advisors and other entrepreneurs, but I didn't really take advantage of that. And I think it would have made me not only a stronger entrepreneur, but just a stronger person, surrounding myself with other people who think similarly to me as well, because we tend to be wired a little differently as entrepreneurs.
definitely. In Indiana, it's so cool. We have 12 counties. If you could just name some of the counties that we're at,
Yeah.
you can name some of those off that we're at. I know we're in Lafayette,
Yeah.
Tipton, and Carroll County.
Yeah, so the way that I describe it to people is we have two offices, one in Kokomo, one in Lafayette, and then we serve a lot of the rural counties surrounding those two kind of hub points. So when you think about Warren and Benton County, which are pretty rural near Lafayette, Tipton, Cass, Miami, Carroll County surrounding us here in Kokomo. So it's all those rural communities that are surrounding kind of those two hubs for us.
Very good. And so there's a couple things that we're excited to talk about and share more details on. And oftentimes people do ask us, "Hey, do you have any grants going on?"
Yeah.
And oftentimes you have to say, "No, we don't have any grants going on," but we actually do. We've got a couple that I'd love for you to speak on. The first one that we can just sort of briefly
Yeah.
touch on is the CCF, the Community Collaboration Fund. What is that, and um, who could it benefit?
Yeah, this is a really cool program that started, I believe this is the third year that we're going to be doing it. And the original intent was to encourage entrepreneur support organizations to work together. And we throw around entrepreneur support organization, ESO, a lot in our world. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs or others were like, what does that even mean? But it's really anybody who serves entrepreneurs. So when you think about the SBDC or a chamber of commerce, their primary function is to help entrepreneurs reach their goals, right? That's how I think of an ESO. It's just anybody who's trying to help entrepreneurs reach their goals. So similar to entrepreneurs, they stay siloed sometimes, right? We don't always collaborate well
Right.
or often, I should say, with other chambers of commerce or even insurance agents, accountants, anybody who's serving entrepreneurs. We don't always connect very well with them. So this program is meant for multiple entrepreneur support organizations to come together and put together programming or any assistance for entrepreneurs. So it could be a chamber of commerce and a co-working studio coming together to put together an accelerator to teach entrepreneurs how to create a better marketing plan. It could be, I think one county did something around youth entrepreneurship, going into high schools and creating a specific program. So
Mm.
it's all about two organizations or more, it could be more organizations coming together and creating a plan for helping entrepreneurs reach their goals. And it's up to $40,000. So if it required additional staff or special speakers, that's what a lot of those funds are meant to kind of offset in creating those new programs.
Very good. And we'll share a link to that in the description when we
Yep.
do post this so you can learn more about it and ultimately see if you qualify. And if you have questions, of course, you can reach out to our office. We'll put that in the description of this video wherever we post it. Um, and on that same sort of grant train, you got the CCF. Thanks for giving kind of a high level of that. There's another one that's called INTAP, INTAP, and that stands for the Indiana Technical Assistance Program.
Nailed it.
Could you share a little sort of high level on that too and what that
Sure.
might entail?
Yeah, this has been a program that's been going on for several years now. We might be in year 7, somewhere around there. So this is more through the IEDC, who helps us fund this program, but it's up to $15,000. And to your point, I mean, we have legitimately hundreds of people that come to us a year saying, "What kind of grant money do you have for startups?" They say, a lot of it comes from the pandemic and COVID. They say, "Oh, I saw all these grants for business owners. Like, where's the money at?" The and as to your point, we say, "Oh, grants are kinda challenging, few and far between for entrepreneurs." But this time of year, the application is usually open early January to mid-February for INTAP every year. We do have some money. It's up to $15,000. And the way that I like to describe it, it's meant to help entrepreneurs improve their business operations with a little bit of an emphasis on the tech side of things. So we've had people who have built apps within their companies. So maybe you are a restaurant and you want your own online ordering platform, right? Grubhub, Uber Eats, they charge a lot of fees for restaurants. So maybe you want to take that on internally. Maybe you want something to help you manage your sales staff. Maybe you just have, and this isn't the other point I should make. This isn't just for people in business. You can be a startup company. We have some people with app ideas who have put together a proposal and have actually successfully. I'm thinking of a client we were just talking about yesterday who was a startup company, had a really cool, unique idea. They put in an application and they did receive money last year. So it can be a startup, it can be somebody who's already in business, but it's really meant to help you improve your processes internally. And that sounds very vague, but it's kind of meant to be because they want unique proposals. It's not really meant for working capital, so it's not meant to be spent on marketing or to hire more staff necessarily. It's to help you create something tangible that's going to help you internally. There's people who have hired attorneys before because maybe they want to patent the product they have, right? That's just adding a level of security within their business. So I always tell people, keep an open mind. If I handed you $15,000 right now and you could spend it within your business to help you improve, what would you spend it on? That's what I ask people
Right.
a lot of times. Keep it vague and, they say, well, it'd be really helpful if I had this new system or that new system. Perfect. That's kind of what this program is meant for, is to give people money to actually expand, grow their companies. Telling a good story is really important. What is the impact of that money when you actually receive it? Or what's the impact on the community? What's the impact on your staff? Are you going to be able to hire more staff? Are you going to be able to make more of an impact in the community? So it's a really cool program to see some of those success stories now that I've been here a few years, and it's a really powerful program.
Love that. And it stimulates too, right? It stimulates
Sure.
economic development.
Yeah.
One of the pieces of that INTAP grant is that they will work with an Indiana-based service provider. So it creates this cross-pollination between somebody that has an idea or something that's innovative or something that's going to grow their company. But meanwhile, they're also going to work with an Indiana vendor
Yep.
on that said project in their application. So we will link to that as well in this video and more information. And of course, again, kind of another cool part about our office, we'll help people. We can obviously fill out the application for everyone, but we can guide them to resources to, see maybe best practices, learn more about the application, and then submit. So in regards to partners, and you mentioned an acronym, ESO, the Entrepreneur Support Organization, and you mentioned a few. You mentioned co-working studios, you mentioned banks, lawyers, anybody that's really helping entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Who who do we work well with and how do we work well with them? Why is it why is it valuable for an entrepreneur support organization to work in cohesion with
Yeah.
your office?
Yeah, I tend to think a lot of those ESOs are very niche in what they do, right? When you think about a bank as an example, they are there to provide loans, have a place where you can store your money and your assets, but they don't always necessarily help you with the larger picture of being an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
They're not helping you through that business plan. They're not necessarily sitting down and talking about what is your customer acquisition strategy? How are you going to how do you read this profit and loss statement? How do you use QuickBooks? There's all these things that we could go down the list and name out, but I think we can come in and supplement what those organizations already do. So if somebody goes into a bank and they say, "Hey, I need some money," the bank wants that person to use that money responsibly, right? I think that's always such a natural relationship. It's like, "Hey, go work with the Indiana Small Business Development Center. You'll get linked up with an advisor. They'll help you not only look at if you need this loan, but how are you going to spend those funds wisely," right? The bank obviously has a vested interest in that relationship. And we could go to any of our other partners and say the same thing, an attorney, right? They're working on something very specific with that business owner. But theoretically, if they work with Small Business Development Center, they stay open, they continue to grow, they're going to need that attorney more and more potentially as they grow. So both parties benefit when entrepreneurs succeed and thrive. And not only both, we can go win, 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 win when it comes to entrepreneurship because it's economic development, it's development for both of those businesses. It's people getting jobs. It's, all of the things when people start a business. So I think that's the cool part about a lot of these relationships is they're very synergistic. It's not we're competing. I'm not trying to give them a loan. I'm not trying to say, "Hey, put your assets in an ISBDC account." That doesn't exist, right? So those relationships are very synergistic because at the end of the day, both of our goals are to help entrepreneurs, and what we do is very supplemental, and we're adaptable and flexible enough as an organization for what that looks like can be very, very different. One person may have no idea how to market. We can help them with that. One person very often doesn't necessarily know how to financially manage their business.
Right.
What is QuickBooks? What is a profit and loss statement? Why does that even matter? We can sit down and work through that piece with you. So all these different elements of a business that are complicated to navigate, we can kind of adapt what that partnership looks like depending on the partner, right?
No, and I love that. That's been fun, realistically here in Howard County, here in Kokomo, one of the counties that we've got, working with some of our support organizations like the Chamber of Commerce here in Kokomo, the City of Kokomo itself and their municipal staff, the Greater Kokomo Economic Development Alliance. We're working on programming this year to help educate entrepreneurs, bring in subject matter experts to talk on a variety of different topics that they could get help with, right?
Yeah.
I think applied knowledge is power,
Yep.
and getting in the way of other entrepreneurs is a good idea for networking and cross communication. It's historical. You look back in Indiana, like all the innovations, again, we'll talk about Howard County, all the innovations and the firsts that happen out of this county. Um, those entrepreneurs were connected to one another in some way. I don't think co-working studios were necessarily around there. Maybe it was a saloon. Same thing, really, the library. But it's been fun to partner with others that care about small business and others that are supporting and championing small business here in Indiana and the results that we've been able to make very early on. And I think, that leads into the question, this spotlight podcast, what are you excited about specifically, making content like this and being in Vision Studio? What are some of your ideas or dreams about this sort of show?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's highlighting the successes of entrepreneurs, right? I think we were talking about some of the struggles, but sometimes we don't talk about our wins enough either, right? So I think that's getting some great entrepreneurs here. There's just to talk about those wins and hopefully inspire others who are maybe going through something and can't quite see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think B, it's to get exposed to some cool programs and people that you weren't aware of before, right? Because we've only talked about a few. I mean, we haven't even talked about like universities, right? IUK, we have a great partnership with right now. Purdue, obviously, we have a great partnership with. You mentioned the Chamber of Commerce. We have like 10 different chambers of commerce within our region. And I think a lot of the stories that you can tell based off of their experience, based off of the resources they provided to people can be really powerful.
Love that. And I'm excited for the future of the show too, because we've already got a really cool guest list of not only entrepreneurs, but community leaders that we hope to get on to ask questions and find out their story and hear what's going on, and um, ultimately discovered new ways that we can support entrepreneurship and create awareness about all these different resources. Um, in in closing, uh, what what would be, if you could give any entrepreneur a skill, that I guess just imagine all the entrepreneurs in the world. If you could give them one skill, what would that one skill be to
Once ago.
help them learn and grow?
Yeah, that's tough. And we were talking a lot before we were recording too about personal development. And that's tends to be where my mind goes quite a bit, is to really focus on bringing balance to what you're doing. And so I really encourage people to find that balance within their own life because it's really easy to focus. Entrepreneur are very goal oriented people. We have these goals, we set action plans to get there. But, as we've discussed, you don't always set those action plans personally. What does it look like to be a father and a husband and a son and a grandson or, a mother, you name it? I don't think a lot of people tend to focus on that side. So that's more on the personal side. I'll go professional as well. I think I try to simplify entrepreneurship for people. When you really break it down, it's about solving problems for people and then serving really well.
Mm.
There's a lot of bells and whistles, and we can talk about branding and all these other things. They're all important, but at its core, if you don't solve problems for people and you're not serving them really well, you don't have a business at the end of the day. So I really encourage people just simplify. I know and I do this too. I get really I like numbers, so I get stuck in my spreadsheets and how important it is to do X, Y, and Z. But at the end of the day, I can create all the spreadsheets in the world if I'm not getting out there serving people, solving their problems, really understanding their pain points. I am not an entrepreneur at the end of the day, so I think those are just really simplifying the process and staying hyper focused. Maybe focused is the word, right? Staying hyper focused on what your mission is.
Man, empathy, service before self, and solving problems that create great results for your customers.
Yeah.
That's solid and such a truth at the end of the day. Because then people talk about their great experiences and they tell other people.
Yep.
We love to tell people about great experiences we've had. So if you as an owner are creating those and really fixating on, focusing right
Yep.
on how I can give somebody an amazing result with this thing that I have, this thing that I do, it's hard to go wrong there. And I think, yeah, if somebody can fixate on that, then they'll be destined for success. Success leads, yeah, service leads to greatness.
Yeah, and I know I hear a lot. There's always this debate on social media. Do you want a great product or great marketing, right? I'm sure you've heard that before. That's always a silly debate to me because if you have a terrible product, people, I mean, if you have a great product, marketing almost happens organically.
Yeah.
Right? Other people are going to refer, you and I are kind of in similar niches. If somebody was targeting us as people who are maybe health conscious and dads in the same age range,
Yep.
like if I found, and we do this all the time, if I really like something, I say, hey, have you drank this or have you tried this new thing? So, I mean, just because the product was great. So I think having a great product and focusing on that is really important.
I love that. And if you are somebody with a great product, making it even easier for your people to refer that or share that through social links and, sort of a referral program. Kind of a fun thought where my head goes as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Maybe an insight into how we think when we sit down with folks is, what does your referral program sort of look like? And how are you capturing people at their highest level and enthusiasm to then broadcast the message about the amazing experience they had? Are you doing it? Are you falling short there? Maybe just a sort of closing thought. But thanks for sharing that. This has
Yeah.
been fun. I'm excited about the future of this show and the spotlight, who we bring on, and what amazing things they're going to share that people can then apply and leverage. How do people get in touch with you, or how do people find you and our office? If somebody's watching this and interested in maybe getting some support or creating some new friendships and getting in the entrepreneurial sort of ecosystem,
Yeah.
how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to isbdc.org. Then there's a little button in the right-hand corner that says work with us. So you can click on that button and see, because maybe you're not necessarily in our region, you want to connect to somebody closer to Indianapolis or wherever people are listening from. And it might not even be in Indiana in general. If you're outside of Indiana, like I said, it's a national organization. But within the state of Indiana, I'd recommend starting at the website. There's a quick form that you fill out. And then usually within 24 to 48 hours, you get connected with an advisor and start meeting with them and seeing what's next.
And when they meet, it could be online, it could be in
Yeah.
person. It's really kind of
And online, phone,
convenience.
everybody's a little different. I've worked with people before who just wanted like text consultations.
Yeah,
And, usually we like to meet at least once face to face just to have that personal connection with somebody. But I've had people request that before.
same. That's fun. Cool. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Sure thing.
Vision Studio, thanks for having us. This is amazing. And yeah, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for our next episode coming out here in a few weeks.